welcome to Slow News Day. I'm Steve Poikinen.
And I'm Sarah Hall.
We are here highlighting artists, activists, organizers, and entertainers, and all-around agitators who are pushing back against late-stage capitalism here in the heart of the empire. We are pleased today to be joined by Chicago native who, if the percentages stand as they are, will be one of the new city council members here in Santa Cruz. He ran on progressive policies, and we're going to get into that in a moment. At the meantime, this man got a PhD in ecology from the University of Santa Cruz, and he is the director of the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program, which we will also get into. We are pleased to have with us today change agent Justin Cummings. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So like I said, we're still waiting for votes to be counted, but if we could, can you kind of lead us up to you getting to the point where you decided to run for city council? Just kind of what brought you out here from Chicago in the first place?
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's degree in Spanish and biology at Eastern Illinois University, and when I was there, I was into a lot of student activism on campus. So I was a part of a group called the EIU Fair Trade Coalition, and we actually got, in about a year and a half, our entire campus to go 90% fair trade.
All right.
And then I also, while working on that group, was one of the co-chairs, and we led protests down to the School of the Americas in Georgia. We also led a group down after Katrina to do relief work. Okay. And so I was very much involved in activism as a student. Also was the representative for the College of Sciences Student Advisory Board, and then became student dean of the College of Sciences when I was an undergrad. And yeah, I was always kind of interested in being active. And so fast forward, graduated college, backpacked Europe with one of my buddies, ended up working on commercial fishing boats as a fisheries observer up in Alaska in the Bering Sea. And while I was out there, I'd been applying to grad schools, and then ended up coming down, being invited down to Santa Cruz, and checked it out. And so 2007, I moved here to pursue my PhD, and my work focused on tropical forest restoration in Panama. So I would go back and forth between here and Panama doing field work. And then graduated in 2013, moved to Miami for 2 years to do a postdoc on climate change in the Everglades. And then the Doris Duke program was starting up right around the time that my postdoc was ending. And so I was able to come back to Santa Cruz, and really moving away after being here for 6 years made me realize how much of a part of me Santa Cruz was and how much I loved being out here. So I moved back, and when I moved back, it was a lot different. Santa Cruz had changed in the sense that a lot of my friends who were like working class, or who were locals who lived here and grew up here, were getting pushed further and further out of Santa Cruz, and they were getting priced out. Yep. And I kept saying to myself, like, this sucks, this isn't okay. Like, what kind of community is this? And, kind of before we started recording, we're talking about, you can sit around and talk about it as much as you want, but that's not going to change anything. So I actually went to one of the affordable housing nights that was put on by the No Place Like Home housing project. And there were people outside saying, like, do you want to work on rent control? And I said yes. And so they put my name down and got my email, and they said, hey, we're having a meeting. I kept seeing the meetings pop up, and then decided I'm going to go and check out this group, and realized that they were serious. And so got on the steering committee for the rent control ordinance, and that was the beginning in terms of like where I started off with going to work on to running for city council. So worked really hard with them and tried to engage with the city council members to get them to put something together, an ordinance for rent control. And we kept getting, the dominant people on the city council were constantly pushing back and saying no. And so they made us do it all ourselves. And we proved to them, after gathering over 10,000 signatures, that we're serious.
Yeah.
And right around that time, some people started coming up to me and saying, like, you ever think about running for city council? And they were like, we need a voice up there. And I was like,
I bet you do.
And so that was it. I decided to do it. And so
the look on your face was priceless too, because the look on your face was like, I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're really lucky to have you. You've got quite a body of experience
Thanks,
behind you and a demonstrated record of commitment to the people and to the environment around you.
Yeah.
So I find that very promising.
Yeah.
And just would like to lend support to that in any way that I can, which is part of why we're here.
Yeah.
So let's hope the percentages stand and you get on there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling like you got it, kid.
You mentioned that the kind of more established city council members push back on rent control, and from what I read about it, because I am busy as shit, and that's not an excuse to not be involved, but that's one of the things living up here in Boulder Creek that I know that we need really, really bad is some rent control. So I'm going to be more involved in that process going forward. Who's pushing back on the city council? Like, who needs to be convinced the most?
Well, I mean, the issue right now is that it's changing over, right? Yeah. So it's hard to say.
Is it a brand new council, or how many people retain their spots?
There's 3 open seats, so 4 people retain their spots. Okay. Cynthia Matthews was not for rent control. Rochelle Naroyan was not for rent control. Now, mind you, a number of these people couldn't vote on the temporary ordinance, and we were able to get the temporary one passed. Yeah. And everybody who's on the current city council, well, Chris Crone wasn't able to vote, and Cynthia Matthews wasn't able to vote, but they were able to get it passed, the temporary rent freeze. And so I guess that's the extent to which I can kind of answer that question, because now that the city council is shifting, it's going to be interesting to see how people support it, especially because every single person who ran said that they supported rent control. Myself and Drew Glover were the only 2 who supported Measure M. Right. Everyone else said, I support rent control, just not this. So for me, and a lot of the landlords that I ran into and homeowners, they all said, I support rent control, just not this. So for me, what that means is, okay, well, then we're going to pass something when this is all over.
There's space for rent control to occupy, and getting more people that are more progressive on city councils is key to that. Talking to people, it's exactly like you're saying. They support the idea or the concept of rent control, but when it comes down to practically applying it, that's where people get caught up or hesitant, because most people only want to support their community in spirit. Yeah,
and I mean, like, that kind of, just to jump in there, that kind of lends to the work that I do. The Doris Conservation Scholars Program focuses on increasing diversity in environmental conservation. And there was a study done called Green 2.0 where they went and looked at government, non-government organizations, NGOs, and they looked at they did a survey to see how people felt about increasing diversity in the field of environmental conservation. And in theory, all these people were like, oh yeah, we find it's important. And then you ask them, well, what are you actually doing? And the percentage actually dropped in terms of who's actually proactively working on it. And I feel like we started this organization 3 years ago at UCSC, and a lot of other partner organizations and other organizations that work in the conservation field are proactively, like, really trying to address that issue now. So, and it's becoming more apparent that people are actually trying to proactively do something about it. And that's what we have to do with city council, with rent control. Yeah. So.
Yeah, light a fire.
Yeah.
You said you're down in the flats kind of area,
yep.
Right? Do you want to talk at all about what Campfield Corporation is doing down there?
Well, a little while back, there's a community garden down there, and they tried taking over the community garden. They cut down a few trees, and the city was able to get them to stop, in terms of the destruction of that community garden, because it's one of the only open spaces that we have in that community. There's also a number of buildings down there that are like housing that's been boarded up and it's just sitting there.
I
And
remember the garden project. Did they come in like Tahoe midnight move out
Yeah.
style and just
Yeah.
do
Chopped
that
down,
in
yep.
the morning?
Yep.
That was a disgrace.
Yeah.
I do not apologize for that. That was
Yeah.
just despicable.
yeah.
Yeah. So I do that every now and then too. It's part of the show.
yeah.
It was bad.
No, it's
and
horrible.
It's disheartening and shady, shady as fuck.
Yeah. Well, and what's happened now too is that there's a lot of housing that's been lost in Santa Cruz. So seaside properties, they used to have long-term housing, and now because they have these like international workers that come during the summer and work at the boardwalk, none of those properties are long-term housing anymore. They're all 9-month housing, especially because we lost La Bahia as well. And
I
so,
personally know somebody that came from Texas, an investor, and went to the city with some plans for leasing the La Bahia, and they were denied. And then they put the chain on it. So instead of having it like rebuilt from an investor outside of the area, turned back into a nice like lodging and waterfront restaurant, they chose instead to just put the chain on it.
yeah. And I actually lived in La Bahia.
That
was
looks
great.
I had friends at the La Bahia as a
Yeah.
kid, for sure. Yeah, memories. There's an emotional attachment there, for sure. But there's also something else going on. We had an opportunity to make that area, like, a little bit nicer in that corner, but I don't think it fit their plan.
Right.
So.
Right.
Let's talk about some of the things that you ran on. Because this is going to get us into a broader conversation about progressive politics nationally. Obviously, rent control is one of them, and it's. But when you were going out and talking to people, like, what was hitting? What was resonating with them the most?
Well, rent control, getting more affordable housing. And so Measure H, which was the $140 million housing bond, that looks like it's going to pass, which is great because then there's no excuse, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can work with the folks in the county and get some of those funds and actually do something rather than the excuse being, well, we don't have any money. It's like, well, here you go. So I think that that's good. Measure G, if I'm not mistaken, looks like it's going to pass, and that is funding for parks, mental health, and homelessness. And so, again, and that's the half-cent sales tax at the county level, so it won't be implemented in the city of Santa Cruz. Again, looking forward to utilizing and having access to those resources so that we can actually do something about the homelessness and mental health crisis.
Was that
Besides
the
just
30
caging
million?
off San Lorenzo Park.
Exactly.
Is there
Yeah.
30 million in reserves somewhere for the mental health that we haven't used? Did I hear that correctly? Is that the funds that I know 30 million isn't very much when you're trying to
It's a good start. Yeah.
it's beautiful,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've got a situation.
Oh, we
we've
do,
got
yeah.
a situation.
We have a friend that clerked for the Board of Supervisors for a number of years. And according to her, Santa Cruz County spends 62% of its budget on law enforcement. At nearly 2/3 going to law enforcement, and this correlates to the federal government spending a disproportionate amount of their dollars on military spending. We're looking at a situation where if we don't take over our city councils and our boards of supervisors completely and do something to shift the focus of the spending, we're going to run into an unsustainable point really, really quick.
Right.
And that kind of brings me to, like, what do you think the future of progressive politics looks like in this country, particularly when at the state level, at the national level, it's an inarguably rigged system?
Yeah. I think we really need to go back to some of the core values of trying to actually take care of the people who live within the communities and not look at people as commodities. I feel that in the past, you know, it always baffles me these days how when you think back, you had people like single income earning homes where one person worked and they were able to afford a house, a car, raise like families upwards of, 8 to 10 children on one income. And there's no reason why we can't do that anymore. And a lot of it is around, how much that CEOs and people in higher positions can actually make, the dollars earned by the company, how much of that's going back to the workers versus how much is going back, going to the CEOs. And what we need to do is we need to make like that funding structure needs to go back and benefit the people, right?
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. Everybody's like, we can't do
100%.
that. It's like we did it.
Right.
We used to do it. And we need to go back to it.
100%.
It functions in other countries currently as
I mean, I'm on workers deserve the means of production. That's where I'm at 100%. And the reason that we have unions in the first place is because that's the block between walking into a factory owner's home and beating him to death in front of his wife and kids. That's why you have unions.
Yeah.
Because
Here we go, just right over the shark, just careers destroyed.
I mean, I'm saying that in a joking context, but historically, it's accurate. I'm not advocating we walk into Jeff Bezos' home because I don't think we could get past his security drones. But,
Do you know he has a patent on cages for workers?
did you know in 2011?
Wow. That's
2011
so
or
fact.
2013, Amazon filed a patent for a single
Here we
occupant
go.
work unit that was essentially a cage and had a conveyor belt going over it for packages so they could add labels or do whatever one person needs to do to put something in a box. And it was completely isolating workers from each other. And they filed the patent, they got approved for the patent, and then one of their mid-level guys was like, "Oh yeah, well we did it, but we're never gonna use it." Like that's some worry-free shit right there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Sorry to
thanks,
Bother You
Tom
or not.
Hanks.
Not, but I should
You
watch
should
it.
go
Oh,
see Sorry
you
to
should-
Bother You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are a busy man.
I've been extremely busy.
You
Like,
are a
running a
busy
full
man.
time,
I know that's what
full-time
it is.
job
I'm
and
not
campaign.
going to hold it
Yeah.
against you, but you got to put that.
Okay.
On your
I
do that.
describe my politics as Boots Riley's music. Is basically like
Okay.
where we're at right that, and that's Boots Riley's movie that he wrote and directed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
Back on target.
back on target. I think.
100% of the management. Blah blah blah.
Oh Jesus Christ! You blah blah blah. I feel like on the state level, particularly when you look at things like Anthony Rendon, who was the head of the state assembly, stepping in the way of single payer a couple of years ago. He was a former pharmaceutical lobbyist. I feel like when we have these two parties where both of them are surrogates for management. Management is making 100% of the decisions. We're never going to have worker representation. So until we can get to a point, whether it's through withholding labor or whether it's through taking over our local governments, it's got to have it happen in coordination with each other. But until workers are represented, we're not going to see results through our government that even address worker issues, and they have us divided over manufactured outrage. All the time they're just pushing
Especially
for
when you get close to unionizing, you're just gonna be
yeah. So
with a
that's
wall of
interesting
flame.
because
Yeah.
Amazon got their $15 an hour, but it doesn't affect their 1099
It
employees.
came at the expense of their bonuses.
And they took it out of their bonuses, their annual and performance bonuses. And Bernie Sanders negotiated this deal. And now nobody's talking about unionizing anymore. Whole Foods was making a big push to unionize, and that shut them down. What do you think about that whole thing? What do you think about Bernie being able to negotiate with Amazon and McDonald's and Disney, and then all of a sudden there's no talk of unionizing anymore? Like, is he putting the left to sleep? Because I feel that's what Barack Obama did to a large extent, is put the left to sleep.
I think that people, even when they get wins, like, for example, the $15 an hour, it's like, you don't stop there. Like, if you were unionizing before, it's like, great, we got $15 an hour and we still need a union, you know? And so I feel like the people who are involved in those types of campaigns, like, they need to keep pushing forward in terms of making sure that they get the unions in place so that they can, for example, you have $15 an hour now. How long is that going to be in place, and when are you going to see the next increase? And is it going to take a union to be able to ensure that you're going to get wage increases over time?
Yeah.
You know.
Can you even live on $15 an hour?
Yeah. I mean,
you know, and I don't know every area where an Amazon worker who got that $15 an hour lives, but you can also put
Parking lot.
right, right.
There's videos of them living in the parking lot.
yeah. Well, that, I mean, like, when you're talking about that, I mean, like, look at some of the teachers in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
You know, live out of their cars.
We've had teachers on here before, people that have worked in a variety of different settings, from Watsonville to Indian reservations to Waspia, Brooknell, right up here in Scotts Valley, like radical transitions in what they're seeing in the classroom. So we do like have a bit of a bead on the teachers. Climb.
My family has a teaching background too. My dad was a history teacher for a number of years. My mom retired as a college English professor, which turned me into a fucking grammar freak.
Nerd.
Nerd. Yeah, I mean, I followed just how screwed over teachers get on a regular basis from every end of it, because it impacted my life.
Why does it smell like back pain and despair in here?
Right. When my kids first started going to kindergarten, like, I'm like, is it wrong to bring them a bottle of Chardonnay and half a Xanax every day? I drop my kid off to them because I feel like they're gonna need it.
Right.
He's got 3 kids though. They're huge. Like, just give her the.
Give her the full thing.
Right.
Shop for your teacher. You guys, bring her something nice. Bring stuff for the class.
Did you follow...
That's your badass kids in there she's dealing with.
Did you follow Oakland's AD-15 race at all? Between Javanka Beckles and Buffy, what's her name?
I did not. No, I did not.
But Javanka Beckles was by far like the progressive candidate. And... she just got outspent at a rate of like 350 to 1 or something like that. For every $1 she raised, her corporate Democrat opponent raised, down in Florida. I don't know if you've seen any of the rumblings about election fraud, but in Miami, the independent that was challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz is my friend Tim Canova. And he ran as a progressive independent this year. I co-founded the Progressive Independent Party in 2017 early. So that was, emotionally invested in that race. And to watch live video of individual people getting out of their cars with unmarked boxes that were ballots from Broward County and from other counties to put them in the back of an Enterprise rent-a-truck.
It didn't look good.
With no second party witness, with no affidavit signed, no chain of custody whatsoever, and this is on videotape. I don't know if you're familiar with Nico House or not, but he's down in Florida. He's in Miami. He has a show called Mi Casa, Su Casa. He's started the Just Informed Network with Tim Black. It's really, really good source of information. But he spent the entire next day, Wednesday, reporting on this. Oh, sorry. And now it's getting co-opted as, well, these are just Republicans that are complaining because Debbie Wasserman Schultz is still elected, but this impacted their governor's race, it impacted their race with the Senate. Brenda Sipes, the election supervisor down there in Broward County, was seen campaigning with Debbie Wasserman Schultz a week before, after she had admitted on camera to illegally destroying ballots during the 2016 primary.
And signed an affidavit.
When Tim Conover ran as a Democrat against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He won that primary. They destroyed his ballots. There's still, nobody was held accountable. Rick Scott, who is now complaining about his Senate race, was governor at the time, was fully aware of the fact that this woman had destroyed the ballots, did nothing, absolutely nothing. If you look at the Democrats just gaining the House back and Nancy Pelosi is still walking around like it's going to be her job again, because it looks like it might be, even though Donald Trump endorsed her, which was the funniest fucking thing that I have seen in a while. Like, what's it? Is it really
so weird out here?
Is it really just going to take death to get these people, like old comfortable age in whatever retirement villa Henry Kissinger has set up? Fucking whatever island, I don't know.
It's like laughing about crow death.
It really is, man. Because it seems like the corruption goes all the way down through that party, and I don't know if you have
Tim was fighting back
state
in his
assembly
area.
ambitions. I don't know if you have national political ambitions. I don't know, man. You're brand new to this, from what I can tell.
I'm just kidding.
How do you think?
how good people
How do you
end up
think
there,
politics play out? You're a PhD in ecologist. You're a PhD in ecology. You know that we have a timeline that's going down to zero pretty quick. What are the odds that voting within a two-party system for incremental change is going to help get us anywhere out of this short timeline that we now have with our climate?
Yeah. Well, I mean, given the last national election, I mean, we got to do something different has to be done. And I think people on both sides need to wake up and be willing to sacrifice, because if not, we're all going down, and it's not going to take too long for that to happen. I mean, we see the increase in forest fires and increase in storm surges, and all the negative impacts that are coming with that. And, we don't
have a jet stream anymore.
Well, it's being impacted, yeah. I mean,
the way that I've read the reporting on it is that it's getting wider and slower. And
what do you know about that?
I haven't recently followed up on any of that, but I do know that one of the results of increasing global warming, is impacts on the jet stream, the atmospheric jet stream, and then also the currents. And a lot of productivity within oceans, depends on the currents and nutrient fluxes within marine ecosystems. And if we disrupt that, then there's going to be cascading effects that are going to have negative impacts on productivity within our ocean ecosystems. And so it's something that's happening. We're living through it. And a lot of people say we need more scientists who are in politics. Yeah. That was another reason why I stepped up, because I'm like, well, my background would be good, because as we're moving forward, we need to make environmentally conscious decisions about how we're going to develop. And we also need to make socioeconomic decisions and decisions that are socially just, because a lot of what people were complaining about, for example, is, well, there's too much traffic. It's like, well, none of the people who work in Santa Cruz can live in Santa Cruz.
Right.
So if they're moving further away, they're going to increase the traffic, and they're going to be emitting more CO2, which is going to have negative impacts on our, ecosystems. So if you care so much about the environment, well, then then you have to sacrifice some things, and that's going to be, you can't rent a 1-bedroom house for $3,200 or $4,000.
Right.
It's like you need to bring that down to where it's affordable for the people who work and live in this town, or you need to start paying people more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Or
one of the two.
Why not both?
Exactly. Hey, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Why not?
Do you
both?
eat fish out of the ocean?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I eat sushi and.
All right. I'm
things
a
like that.
little
Did you
weirded out
catch
about the
that his-
Fukushima water.
Day job
Um,
is at the marine biology.
No, I did not catch
he
that.
works
Yeah, Long
at
Marine Lab.
Should I be
Marine
freaked?
Lab.
Should I be freaked out about Fukushima water?
Yeah, it's worth being
All
concerned
right.
about, and knowing where your fish comes from. I mean, I haven't been following up on that as well as I should.
But as somebody who
But-
works at Long Marine Lab,
'Cause,
where
I
do you
mean-
like to get your fish from? 'Cause
Right?
I want to know.
I honestly don't really eat as much.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, I don't buy as much fish.
Zero or
Yeah.
none.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go out to a restaurant and get sushi every once in a while. But that's
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
the
we
extent.
can't just
Yeah.
smother ourselves holding our breath.
Right,
Like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
No,
I'm
I'm
just
like-
kind of
I-
like more pick and choose where you get your toxins.
know where you
from
get. Yeah,
these
exactly.
days.
Like a lot of local. I mean, like I'm all for supporting like locally caught fish and locally farmed ag and organic and stuff
I'm
like
huge
that.
on fair trade.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
touched on that at the beginning. You switched someplace over to 90% fair trade.
Mm-hmm.
What was that place again?
Yeah, that was at the university I worked at when we got our coffee to go
Great.
90%
I
fair
worked
trade.
at a college kitchen, and the amount of waste there was just incredible.
Yeah.
So fair trade to me is really important on those things that I use every day,
Mm-hmm.
like ritualization. Coffee, very important to me,
Yeah.
that it's all fair trade.
Yeah.
Organic.
Yeah. Even clothing, making sure that it's like union certified, made in the U.S.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not. I can't say that all my clothing has been made in the U.S., but making sure that we support those types of things and get more of that kind of support.
I
is
will
important.
say the clothes I have ordered from Amazon, I feel like they're made of human hair. They just give me these weird vibes.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are
Bleached
these
with slave labor
smells?
tears.
Yeah.
Just
totally.
tiny,
Yeah.
tiny little hands.
Mm-hmm.
No, fair trade is extremely important. There's shifts that we can make in our everyday lives that
Mm-hmm.
so many people I feel so powerless that they don't even try to start doing.
Right.
I know that I went through a period of that, of feeling just so overwhelmed and powerless and
Yeah.
outnumbered. There's just nothing I can do. Why would I even try? So many hungry mouths to feed, never a day on the state capitol steps.
Yep.
And if you feel that way, there are, I'm not talking to you clearly, this is right.
Broader,
There's
yeah.
just small shifts
Yeah.
that we can to make in our everyday lives. If you spend that much money on coffee for a family of 5 every day, just shift the label over. Fair trade,
Yep.
organic. That's going to be going easier on your planet. Less glyophosphates in the environment, less glyophosphates in your body. Fair trade. You know, that tastes better to
Yeah.
me to not feel like.
Well, and then it has impacts on like many of those that are like shade grown, so they're maintaining habitat for birds in these countries, having less of an
you.
environmental impact. And then at the same time, the whole point of fair trade is to make sure that the people who are actually producing it are giving a fair amount of compensation for what they're producing.
Right.
Which traditionally, you have these big companies like Folgers
Yeah.
that are not compensating these farmers very well, and instead we start these, organizations that are ensuring that a large portion of what is being large part of the income that's being produced from them, growing this coffee is going back to the farmers and
Yeah.
providing them with a better livelihood, and that's what we need to do in general as a community as a whole.
This woman does that with this product line, Evan Healy. She goes to places in other countries and gets women together to
Yeah.
grow her products for her organically. She creates sustainable communities around her product line, and brings it back,
Right.
you know, legit, not like, oh, I'm going out of the country so I can circumvent the FDA.
I need to change the
Right.
metrics of slavery.
Right, exactly. Well,
Just a little bit.
and that's what a lot of these big corporations have done, right?
Yeah.
It's like, here, we're going to put all these laws in place that make sure that you're paying your workers a living wage, that you're paying them benefits, that you're making sure that their work conditions are safe.
Yeah.
And now, because it's so easy for us to move about the world globally, we've allowed these like larger corporations to get out of like being under these rules and guidelines, because then they can just go to China,
Yeah.
you know, or to somewhere else in the world where, you know, the
Well, that's
rules
what
and guidelines.
NAFTA and CAFTA were all about.
Exactly, right.
Well, the
yeah,
joke's
yeah,
on
totally.
them,
Good.
because look at their air.
Right.
Well, and that's exactly, and that's the thing, is that they get out of the regulations, and that's what would have been
Terrible.
here if we had not put those
Terrible.
regulations
I
in
know,
place.
it's
The,
terrible.
Right?
the new
But it's all-
Trans-Pacific Partnership looks terrible.
We're all
Oh, yeah.
connected. That's
Absolutely
our
terrible.
air too. If
Yeah.
they're sullying it there,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hate to be. I feel like we're allowed to breathe in this space because of not this space that we're in here, but because of the purchasing power that remains. When we see 14 million people queued up in Yemen for like starvation, and that doesn't have to happen. That's unprecedented starvation.
Yeah.
That's gonna make Africa look like
It's becoming the world's largest genocide, and it is 100% facilitated by the United States government.
and it doesn't have to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could write a check for that
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for as much as we spend on military.
And if
yeah.
we think that won't happen to us here, see, this is the place that I'm kind of operating from. When I see something happening to somebody standing next to me, I assume
we have
that it's only a
hookworm
matter
in
of
the
time.
American South. We do.
All this,
Straight up.
the 1900s are coming back.
The United Nations called pockets of the U.S. third world status. I mean, it is.
Just
man.
this week they did.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. I'm not arguing with that either.
I grew up in the Midwest as well. I grew up in Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you read Chris Hedges or not. He got fired from the New York Times after winning a Pulitzer Prize from the New York Times. He got fired from the New York Times for telling the truth about the war in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's, shuffled off to the lecture circuit and has a show on RT. Because that's where everybody goes who gets fired from mainstream media for telling the truth about the war. Russia television.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. It's Russian television. It's like, it's their bureau. CNN has a Russian bureau. At any rate, Hedges talks about the town that I grew up in, Anderson, as being one of the models for why NAFTA doesn't work. And it was a GM town. It completely went to shit after the mid-90s. How do we combat shitty trade deals with the system that we have in place right now? Is there Santa Cruz probably has a little bit more leeway than say Anderson, Indiana, or even Chicago, especially Chicago, because of how blotted it is, and what Rahm Emanuel did to it these last few years.
Everybody's just on his list.
Hey, look.
We got a witness right here, just all day long,
Look, man, my district was responsible for electing Mike Pence, my hometown. I was gone. All right, that wasn't me.
So he feels like it's his duty now to just cover every end of the earth to make up for it.
Thank you.
I have a
Just
large,
like him moving around with a pooper scooper.
large vegetable garden plot that hopefully after I
It
can
won't get demoed.
drip systems. Yeah,
Hopefully they won't just come in and bulldoze it. No.
right.
No, we're big on the community.
But no, I mean, I
gardening
should
too.
be able to feed like 40 people out of it next year with
Nice.
like guaranteed produce to food insecure people who are in the county, or if I can get it bigger than that, then out of county. I'm thinking about writing a grant for a food truck, a refrigerated truck.
Cool.
So
That'd be awesome.
Get, you know.
I think we're thinking victory gardens of old too.
I call it I call it
Yeah.
Pyrrhic
Beautiful.
victory gardens.
What's that?
I call it Pyrrhic victory gardens.
Yeah, I mean, we need it. And that, that brings up a point is that, like our generation just really needs to like step up.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason why I did it too. Because I'm like, you know what? Baby boomers had their time. Thank you for your service. It's time to, go and enjoy the rest of your days and let us take over because we need to be protected,
Right? No, they heard the term golden years, and so they thought they should just hoard all the money.
Right. I mean, like, honestly, it feels like Santa Cruz and I guess maybe California housing market in general is a gold rush. Mm-hmm. It's like you can buy a house here, and if you bought it, years ago, then you're in an even better situation where if you bought a house for $200,000, it's now worth like $1 million.
Yeah.
And, and the thing with rent control, the thing that people are most concerned with is they look at it as this like cash cow investment. Mm-hmm. And that's not the way housing should be.
No.
And so, you have people who you're trying to convince, younger people like, go to college, you'll be able to get out and get a good job and make good money and buy a house and have a family and buy a car.
Nobody's convinced of that anymore.
Oh, no, it's complete.
Nobody's convinced.
Well, some of the younger generation are, that's the thing, because they're going to high school. This is what they're hearing. And then that's, when I was running on campus.
Well, yeah, that's the marketing.
Right, that's the marketing. It's the same thing with military, right? Yeah. It's like, hey, man, you're 18, come join the military. We'll give you $10,000, for a high schooler who's worked a minimum wage job their entire life. It's like, that seems like a lot of money. Yeah. And it is to someone who's that age.
Yeah.
But then what comes after that?
They lease a Dodge Charger, they get some chick pregnant, and then they go to Iraq.
Well, especially when they're like, and if you have kids, we'll give you more money.
Yeah.
And then, and then you get out and you have PTSD and you have all these issues and they don't want, and they're like, no, we don't want to give them, we don't want to give you all money, So, and that was one of the things that I was communicating to students on campus. It's like, look, I have a PhD and I can't afford to live on my own here. Mm-hmm. I run a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. I can't afford to live on my own.
Yeah.
In Santa Cruz.
And you're not alone. And there's
that's
no
the thing,
shame
right?
in that.
No, and that's the thing. And my thing is that I'm pointing out to them that if we want to continue down this trajectory, then you can go vote for whoever else is like just saying how much they love the environment and yada yada.
Right.
But you have candidates in front of you who are saying like, this is a problem that we need to fix. And for me, I wish that someone had done that. I mean, there's been a number of people like Bernie Sanders and all these other, progressive candidates who have stepped up and, voiced that we need to do something more. But I mean, that's what it's going to take is people stepping up and actually trying to do something.
Did you see the thing where
You're doing a lot.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got slammed for being like, I can't afford an apartment in D.C.?
I did see that.
I didn't see that.
Oh, yeah.
But that,
Yeah.
She did.
how's she getting slammed for that?
Because
exactly
they were like,
what she said.
you idiot millennial, you couldn't save, you they're just, people pick on her 100. People pick on her a lot. Anyway.
But she was like, there's no shame. It was so beautiful. Oh my God, that was so beautiful. She says there is no shame in not being able to afford a house and during this basically a freaking crisis.
Yeah. That's the thing. People are pointing the finger at her. What they need to be pointing the finger at is the market. Yeah. Because if the market is at a point where people who are working in professional fields can't afford to live in the housing, that has nothing to do, because it's not just like that one person, it's people throughout that entire economic spectrum. Mm-hmm. And so now the question is, how do we deal with the market? Yeah. And the thing is that from an economic perspective, the market doesn't want to deal with itself because, if you can buy something and then it's worth X amount more, like exponentially more profit is the whole point of, a good economic structure. Yeah. But now we have to shift away from that because we're realizing it doesn't work. It doesn't protect people.
I've said real quick, I've asked a couple of people this on the show, and I think I'm going to keep doing it. Do you think capitalism is a religion?
In what sense?
Well, in a few, in that in that whenever someone questions the merits of capitalism or whether they need to regulate it or restrain it, the immediate clapback from the defenders of capitalism are, well, we've never had a truly free market. We've always had a restrained market. If the market were just free, then everybody would prosper. And that's I'm just telling you what the response is, which is why it makes it more of a supernatural belief system to me. Because if you haven't seen real capitalism or truly unregulated free market, or haven't let the invisible hand of the free market decide, all of those are tenets of a supernatural belief system or faith. Like capitalism survives on faith in terms of speculation or in terms of manipulation. So that's kind of what I mean to it. I haven't sat down and put together the 10 Commandments yet because I don't want to make myself sick to my fucking stomach.
Right.
It's basically where
And
we're
thanks
at.
for not doing that. I just want to be willfully ignorant here. No.
I mean, I don't know if I would agree with the statement that capitalism we haven't had a completely free market structure, because I feel like when you have slavery as a base of economic structure, that is completely unregulated capitalism. Because what you're saying is that we don't care about people, period. Make money however you can, and even if that means chaining people up so that because then we had that, so we abolished slavery, and then we have the Industrial Revolution, and we have children working, we have unsafe work conditions, we have all these things, and that was a period too when capitalism was very unrestricted. The one big restriction they had is you can't enslave people. But instead of putting them in chains, what it did is you lower their wages to the point where they can't survive very well, and you create conditions under which it's you either work here or you don't have any income. Right. And so then we begin putting more restrictions on, because we understand that if we don't do this in a free capitalist market, they're going to treat people however they want to, as long as they're making profit. And they're going to feed off the desperation of people. I
100% think that from the moment of abolition, the power structure in this country is just worth to change the metrics of slavery.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, even with our prison system, know. If you have people who are working within prisons to create products, and they're extremely minimally compensated for that, but the people who are selling those products are actually making profit on them, then there's a problem.
It's what, 20-something% of U.S. made products are prison labor. I don't know. I can't remember the exact number. It's close to a quarter. I can't remember if it's 24 or 26.
But if that's
at $1.82 an hour average.
Yeah. And this is supposed to be a corrections facility,
right?
To get people to reintegrate into society. I don't think that's
no. It's a recidivism factory. That's all it is.
So, sorry, I'm gonna finish eating this piece of ice and then.
Yeah, the sound in here is really good. Very salty. You can just gulp. Yeah, and while we're doing that, I don't want to take us too far off, but I did want to ask you about your thing locally here with rent control. Is there anything that 12 people listening right now can do to support your cause? Because it's something we are all always talking about. So where can they go? What can they do? I know there's council meetings that are held, and we all go down there en masse in an angry mob, and it seems like not a lot gets done. Is there something else that we can do to support you and this rent control for all of us?
Yeah, so Santa Cruz Tenants Association, they are working very diligently on this.
Who runs that?
Cynthia Berger. I don't have her email
That sounds familiar.
offhand, but Cynthia Berger runs Santa Cruz Tenants Association. And they are working, they had a meeting yesterday. I wasn't able to go to it, but, the one thing that people should be aware of and pay attention to is the fact that there are people in this community who are working diligently to try to get rent control passed. And I can't say with 100% certitude, but I would bet that all the people who were on that No on M campaign who are against rent control, I would highly doubt that any of them showed up to that meeting yesterday to work on rent control. I highly doubt that they're organizing right now to get any kind of rent control measure, put into effect, even though many of them said, we're for rent control, just not this. And so my thing is like, okay, there's a good chance it's not going to pass. What are you doing right now in case it doesn't pass so that we can get something put in place? And so the folks who worked on the Yes on M campaign, they're like, right now, like, what do we do? How, like, what can we do that's effective? I'm already beginning to think about what landlords and homeowners I can reach out to who are the small time, mom and pop landlords in town who are, the No on M folks were saying are going to be the most negatively impacted. So I'm already starting to think about who are these people, how can we bring them together?
Well, and I mean, what is the negative impact? You don't get a boat that fits inside your boat? Like, I mean, I only get to go to Switzerland 4 times this winter to ski. Like, that should just, because I've never actually touched that kind of wealth. I don't know what that's like. I haven't experienced the fuck,
I'm about to be a homeowner here, and I don't consider myself to be of that kind of wealth, even though we want to take on a tenant. And we joke about pressure washing off our van for Airbnb.
I'm sure you're not the only one.
But, we've also discussed, like, doing a prefab, or, like, converting our basement for, like, somebody to help us. I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm, what was that guy's name this week? I agree with you on the Measure M thing. I think a lot of the people say, I noticed some kids on Ocean Street, the ones holding up the sign, the kids look very rented.
Oh no, they paid a lot of people. They paid a lot of No on M signs on election day. And that's
the No on 10 campaign statewide for the ballot. They spent $75 million in the course of 2 months.
It's a lot of burritos.
To
convince people to not advocate for rent control statewide.
Well, and then the No on M campaign raised $1 million, and the majority of that came from outside of Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
The California Apartment Association, a number of different realtor associations, investment firms that were from like New York, Chicago, outside of Santa Cruz, and it's $1 million on Santa Cruz, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Santa Cruz, I read recently, is like the 3rd most income unequal county in the state.
It's the 4th in the world.
4th in the world.
It's the 4th most unaffordable place when you look at median income and rental prices and the cost of homes in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So one more time, the 4th in the world.
In the world.
So,
man, I could go
Santa Cruz is kind of famous for agreeing that the problem needs to be fixed, but unwilling to do it if it directly impacts them. And I think that the messaging needs to be like, hey, this is already impacting you, and the only thing that you can do about it is fucking put the brakes on exploding housing prices.
Right.
I remember when the market crashed last time, and there were a quarter of the houses here just bank owned and emptied. Like, you could not, it took us 2 years to find a place to rent here at one point.
I remember that, and you guys had to live over in the valley.
Yeah, I had to move I had to live in San Jose for
this kind of stuff gives
months.
us PTSD.
Oh, I know.
I'm not even kidding.
I know.
I lived in a tent after Loma Prieta earthquake.
Yeah.
Okay, it happens.
Yeah.
We went through the Love Creek slide. We were in between places for a while. It happens. I'm halfway to the finish line at almost 50, and what I'm seeing these days is just 4th in the country, huh?
In the world.
In the world.
Okay, that explains a lot. That's rough, man.
Yeah.
That is really, really rough.
Well,
Not so much for me. I don't have kids, but for my partner who has 3 kids, for Una Bear that lives. Oop, did I just?
Shout out to Una Bear.
Shout out to Una. What are you gonna do? Are you aware of this meter maid thing that's going on down there, where the meter maid comes down there and he has told these women he comes down there to torture them?
Oh, yeah. No, I saw that video on Facebook. Yeah, that was ridiculous. It's absurd.
Parking Peter? He's got a hashtag now. You know what? Fuck that guy.
Right. That's the other thing, man.
Who is he working for?
I know.
Does he do that just for, I come down here to torture you? Is that something to say to somebody?
When the organization that you volunteered to take a job with, that you applied to take a job with, then immediately tells you like it's just you in this thin blue world against the rest of the people out there, it structures it so that this paramilitary organization, it views everyone who isn't wearing their uniform as an enemy. Of course you're gonna get that kind of shit, man. And like, I don't know how you can convince the police that like we're the same economically. You know, like we deserve to be helping each other instead of you indiscriminately murdering or tasing people. Like, I don't know what I don't know what community representation by the police force looks like, because I haven't seen it. And like right now, most police forces don't look like the communities where they work.
Yep. Yeah. And I actually got to sit down with the police chief, and we had a really great discussion about like
Mills?
Yeah,
The
Andy Mills.
new
Yeah.
Mills?
Yeah.
He seems like he's been doing a lot of positive
Yeah,
things for
yeah,
Santa
no, we
Cruz.
had a really
Do
great
you feel like
conversation.
that's
Yeah,
true?
I feel like I feel like I need to engage more. But in speaking with him, one of the things he was saying is like the most calls we get are all mental health.
Yeah.
And on the homelessness.
It must be so tough.
Right, and that's what I'm hoping with some of these things like Measure G, which was for the half-cent sales tax to go towards funding more mental health. It's like if we're going to give any funds to the police force, it needs to be providing more mental health workers to go out with them to actually go and address these issues.
I went for a yes on all that.
Yeah.
I really don't care what it costs or where the money comes from. Being somebody who's about to try in the process of buying a home here, I feel like the value of my home goes down if I see people with injuries dragging themselves down the pavement because, not maybe my property value, but for me personally, the quality of my life goes down when I am, dealing with that. So
Right.
it must be really, really tough to be the police chief and have your hands tied. I know he's like pretty fresh on the scene, and I don't have any dirt on him yet. As far as I can see, he's served most communities he's gone through very well and turned them around considerably.
Right.
So I wish him all the best, and
totally.
I hope that those monies do get freed up. Not that he's going to become an expert in mental health, but that mental health needs to work in conjunction.
Exactly.
And after this year, the situation they had get out of hand down here at the bottom of Highway 9, and we got to see what that looks like firsthand when people go nuts and ambush them in the dark. It's, I don't always think of them as the enemy. They're almost like custodians or like janitors with like just the worst detail on earth. Just because it goes so far out of their what they do. They're not trained. They have a thing. This goes beyond the scope of what we're capable of dealing with here.
Yeah.
A lot of challenges ahead for Mr. Mills.
They spend a limited amount of time training in
12
general.
hours, I think.
And then most of that appears to be memorize, I was in fear of my life, or he was reaching for his waistband, and here's the thing to get you to your piss clean when you take your steroids test, your one drug test we're ever going to give you as a police officer. All right, now here's 100 hours at the range, now get out there and be the law, And like
those younger ones make me real nervous.
Yo.
Those just, are you old enough to have that sidearm?
Right. Yeah.
and that's that's obviously just my opinion, and it doesn't always, that negative opinion of police in general doesn't always reflect on all police officers 100%
Of course.
of
Thank
the
you
time.
for saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
But culturally, I
yeah, we
am
have a problem.
suspicious of that organization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
We don't have to break that one down for you, I'm sure.
Yeah. No.
So that's why I'm stoked that there are people coming into city government that
And people
At
like
least-
Mike
And,
Mills,
and Andy.
Andy Mills, yeah, that don't seem like they're going to carry on
think
that
Mike
tradition
Mills is a
of
musician.
shaving their eyebrows and that is no joke, dude. I dealt with sheriffs one day down over on the east side with shaved eyebrows. I'm like, this is going to be a weird ass party right now. And the block got shut down that day, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it takes all kinds. What else do
Are
I
there
got?
other plans for Santa Cruz's homeless besides fencing in San Lorenzo Park?
Well,
And is this like
Yeah.
a national thing? Because it seems
Oh,
like more cities are like cordoning off areas that are just, here's your fenced in area
Mm-hmm.
where you can be
You
homeless.
said that
and
very nicely.
we-
You said that more nicely than I would have.
we put you in our, welcome to miniature Gaza.
Yeah, there you go.
Friggin-
There it is.
you know, one of the things that I'm really interested in kind of now starting to explore is the idea that, where are there resources for homelessness? Like, how are they distributed across the different cities and throughout the county? And then, and additionally, throughout, at the statewide level too. Because right now, for example, the city of Santa Cruz has the majority of any type of like homeless services within the county. So, of course, if people are getting picked up in any part of the county and brought to the county jail, and if they have to, go through some kind of program, they have to stay in the city, right? If there are options for people in other parts of the county and in other cities throughout the county, then you can evenly distribute, where people can go and give them options, especially if they maybe live closer to those. I mean, many of these people don't have homes, but, maybe they have families that are closer to some of these areas.
Maybe
And so
Monterey would want to do that. We could set them up in like Carmel.
I'm down. But I mean, but it's serious, right? Because it's look, if we all did our part to try to take care of these people, then we wouldn't have these situations that we have.
Absolutely.
The problem is that people like they want to find the
Concentration
easiest
of disparity.
right, and the easiest solution is just push it along, push it somewhere else. Like we don't want to see it because they don't want to deal with it, and it's like no, why don't we start dealing with the problem?
Yeah.
And we can actually begin to like make strides towards, providing services for these folks and getting them back on their feet, figuring out like what kinds of things can we do and like ways that we can employ you so that you can be self-sufficient and not be on the
Watsonville
street.
started a program last year. Do you know a little bit about that?
A little. I know that they're building.
I heard it was semi-successful. They've housed like 10 people.
Yeah, and they're building more. They're currently building more housing down there
Beautiful.
too. So which is great.
Maybe that was the test run to get it up and going. Start small. I've been hearing good things about that.
Right. Yeah, but that's the thing is we just have to start actually addressing these issues and providing and I know people are like, oh, my tax dollars are going towards these people who
Well, if you know about MMT,
I was
that whole
gonna
thing
say-
is not true.
At the federal
Tax dollars.
level.
You're right. Thank you for correcting.
Which is different than city and county and state.
got that memo.
But one of the reasons that I think that you'll enjoy getting to know the MMT crew is because their policy positions coupled with the understanding of how spending works at the federal level has allowed for a lot of material to be gathered and presented about a federal jobs guarantee, and coupled with universal basic income, because UBI as a standalone thing is just not sustainable.
What's UBI?
Universal basic income.
Oh, okay.
Where you're like, okay, well, everybody gets $1,000 a month, but there's no jobs guarantee. It doesn't do anything about the price of housing. It doesn't do anything, about affordable food. I'm a big proponent of more community gardens. Are we running out of public places in Santa Cruz to do that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of actual community gardens that are already in existence in a lot of the neighborhoods in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like driving around randomly being like, oh, whoa, here's a cool community garden.
I love walking,
You know?
strolling through and
Yeah.
seeing stuff like that.
But I would say that there's a lot of, land in Santa Cruz is an issue in terms of what's available. And, there's constant pressure to develop on anything that hasn't been developed on. So, that's one of the pressures that we have. I know that the Homeless Garden Project has been in the works of moving up and onto the border of Pogonip. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be another space that will be open. What that will mean and how that will look in the future.
Homeless people they got to kick out.
More eyes on the arsonists back there. No.
Yeah. Jesus. Isn't that where the last little fire got started? Wasn't that in the
There's a
Pogonips?
couple. It's going on
I know
all the
that the
time. When
root
you
fire
have
is still going
4,000
on.
people living outside, they're cooking,
Yeah.
they're living. Pardon the fuck out of me for existing. I mean, we do have a couple of arsonists, but most of the 37 random fires that we've had in the last 2 months in the county have been started by people that are living outside.
That's
not,
what- yeah.
Not by firebugs.
Yeah.
Firebugs make it worse, of
Yeah.
course, but yeah, there's a lot of reasons why we need to address these, just other than, we've abandoned our humanity.
I think the only path for that. Okay, I think the only path for that is through taking over your local government part of your activism. I really do.
That's what I'm doing.
And that's why you're here today, man.
We're so happy to
stoked on
have
that.
you here
Yeah,
today
no, thanks for having
and
me.
see
Yeah.
fresh faces that
Yeah.
just really, just even at a glance, you're like, this isn't business as usual.
Right.
Because it's clear as day.
Right. Yeah.
I was so happy to see you,
Yeah.
and I started sharing your thing right away, and he's like, have you contacted this guy? I'm like, sir, I just found it. He was like, and then I'm like, okay, done.
Yeah. No, and thanks for contacting
Well, no,
me.
I mean, you put it on our show's face page, so I was like, oh sweet, maybe she already lined this dude up as a guest.
Yeah.
That's why we're pimping his shit.
I'm just at home
Now you're a
working
guest,
like
so it's
Victorian slum, doing handwork in my living room.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks once they finish counting everything up. I mean, it's looking pretty good. I'm not going to pat myself on the back until it's all over. And and same thing for all the other candidates, too, because you never know how these things can swing. There's 55,000 votes that they're still counting.
Boy, you're right about that. And that seems to be the atmosphere. Don't get comfortable. Don't count those chickens. Yeah, I think we all learned that.
And never run as a progressive in Broward County.
And never run as a progressive in Broward. Why does it all go down in Broward and Dade?
Oh, God.
I'm so glad you're out of there. Thank you for coming to Santa Cruz.
Glad I was able to make it back because,
Just those mulleted zombies.
Oh, God. It was...
No, it's not even all the mulleted zombies. You were saying it was something else too. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's like the level of materialism. For me, it's just
gross.
like unpalatable.
It becomes nauseating.
It is. Yeah.
You can't stomach it. You just can't sit.
I mean, I'd be
still
talking
for
to
it.
people and they'd be like, oh, you have a PhD, and they're like, well, you're not a real doctor, and it's just like, what do you do again? I mean, I don't like playing that, having that conversation with people, but it's like, that is so disrespectful,
Right.
like, especially when it's like, I'm not gloating, I'm not like, putting it out there, but, like, oh yeah, I've got my doctorate, and like, oh yeah, so you're medical, like, you're a doctor, like, no, I got a PhD in ecology, and they're like, oh, well, you're not a real doctor, and it's just like, that is the most...
Fuck you!
And then I had a number of people, for example, who were trying to encourage me to stay, and they were like, you can go work for one of the oil companies. Like, like, why don't you just go to these?
Be a lizard person.
And I was just like,
just be a lizard person.
right? It's like, you realize why I got into the ecological field in the first place was to like protect the planet,
Yeah.
not to just go like make money as best, like as as quickly as I could.
God, that's fucking disgusting.
I know. Yeah. How do you think I felt? I'm like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Miami, it's
Itchy.
been fun. I gotta
I
leave.
feel
You know.
itchy.
Right?
You know.
Yeah, I'm glad that was your natural impulse, man.
Yeah.
I am. Fucking,
They don't
Yeah.
deserve you. They're sinking anyways.
Well, that was the other thing. Why am I gonna pay $600,000 for a house that's sinking into the ocean? It's like,
Red
Even
algae,
the engineers are like, even the engineers are going, you want us to what?
Yeah.
This is not doable. Why?
I mean, they installed this
we
pumping
don't want to
station.
put our name on this. Come
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah. No, they have these pumping stations in Miami Beach because the king tides, like not even during storms, it would just, the streets would just flood. And it's like, you do realize like this is happening right now and they're still dumping so much money into Miami Beach.
yeah.
And for me, it's just like, no offense to anybody who's there. Like if you like Miami and that's your place, fine. But I'm just
We don't
saying
give
that
a
like,
fuck.
Yeah.
We don't get
No,
there you go, you can have it.
mulleted
Yeah.
nightmare bath salt.
Right?
It must be in the water. No.
Bath salts and orange juice. Those fucking handguns, cheap handguns.
Oh, yeah.
Florida's good for a handful of things, man.
Sure is.
Well, shit, Justin. I think we're gonna.
Oh,
wrap.
let's ask you
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
any other of your interests or passions or things, worthy causes for the 12 people that are listening.
Oh yeah, and let people know if like if you have
Anything you want to push,
yeah.
plug, or bump, now's the time.
I'll just give a shout. My buddy, I'm wearing his jacket right now. It's the Lovarchy. He's a
rad. By
yeah,
the
it's
way.
Beautiful.
and he started this clothing company in Santa Cruz. It's really great, and his website's still kind of in the works. But if you go on Facebook and look for Lovarchy, his gear is on there.
Right.
Catchy.
I've been training at with Garth Taylor. He's got a new jiu-jitsu spot on the west side, Garth Taylor Jiu-Jitsu. And again, like I've been training in jiu-jitsu for 10 years. Was a former wrestler, and I feel like it's something that if people have the means to do it, they should, because it's the best form of self-defense.
I'm a wrestler, yes sir.
Yeah. What else? I mean, get involved. That's the biggest message I could say. It's like,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
can be individual for people. Santa Cruz has it all, man.
Yeah.
Food for people,
Yep.
rent control. Go check out a city council meeting.
Yep.
See just observe what goes on, you
Yeah.
know, and feel your power wherever you can find it.
exactly.
And
Feel
I'm
your
gonna
power whenever you can find it.
reiterate to you, but for people listening too, if you haven't, check out Real Progressives
Yep.
on Facebook and Twitter, and check out Nico House on YouTube, and Just Inform is on Roku now too.
And I just like to push if folks want to check out other work I do. The website's conservationscholars.ucsc.edu.
Excellent.
And you can see, you know, what kind of work we're doing to increase diversity and environmental conservation.
Hell yeah.
Beautiful. Thank
So-
you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, and that's a wrap. Yeah, thank
All right.
you.
Thanks
so
for having
much.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin.
Very much
We
appreciate it.
look forward to having you back
Yeah.
too. After you take that seat.
Yeah.
Boom. That's a wrap.
All right. Thanks.